The one who ate the Barabaranomi and became a split man is gonna play an even bigger role in the story than he already does. I say, Buggy will be holding the power to control the ancient weapon Uranus. If you wanna know why, stay tuned. Captain Buggy, our friendly clown with the big red nose. Captain Buggy, hero of the sea and mighty pirate, was once part of the Pirate King's Goldie Rogers crew. Together with Shanks, he sailed the seas until the day the Roger Pirates were disbanded. But I will come back to this later. I surely do not have to remind you about Buggy's past. But after he escaped from Impel Down together with Luffy, he quickly rose up the career ladder. While on the ship that sailed towards Marineford, the Marines stated via Snail that he underestimated Buggy, as he was part of Roger's crew and so-called blood brother of red-haired Shanks, one of the 4 emperors. When he arrived at Marineford, Whitebeard acknowledged that Buggy and his troops could cause trouble for his plan to save Ace, so he offered to form an alliance with Buggy. All this led to the world government offering Buggy a position as warlord, but that wasn't enough. He started a mercenary business and ran it for a while until the system of the 7 warlords had been dissolved, which led to an instant raid of his hideout by the Marines as he was marked a criminal again. In this dire situation, our clumsy clown was wavering in fear, with snot running from his big red nose when... Our great Captain Buggy was not impressed one bit by the actions of the world government and fought a grand battle against the Marines, while Sir Crocodile and Dracule Mihawk only stood on the side and simply gazed upon the glorious fight of our beloved Captain Buggy. Impressed by his sheer skill and power, Hawkeyes and Crocodile immediately offered Buggy the leading title in their new alliance called Cross Guild. Through this, Buggy became recognized as one of the 4 emperors and earned a bounty of 3,189,000,000 berry. While the Cross Guild is issuing bounties on Marines and surely is creating havoc amongst the seas, Buggy's part in the story is far from being over yet. I am pretty sure Oda has big plans for Buggy as he is his favorite villain in the series. Buggy is actually the first paramecia fruit we ever saw in the series, now that we know that Luffy's devil fruit is a Zoan fruit. But not only this, in my opinion, Buggy is also the first conduit of an ancient weapon that got introduced to us as well. Who is the first conduit we meet in this story? Some people would say Momonosuke. While at first many people assumed Momo was the ancient weapon himself, at least since chapter 1053, we know that Pluton is sleeping beneath Wano Kuni, so that rules Momo as weapon out. I also heard from several folks that Momo is the conduit of Pluton. Maybe that's true, maybe not, but we leave it at that for now. Alright, so why do I think that Buggy controls Pluton? Do you remember this big egg on Roger's ship, the Oro Jackson? In chapter 0, we see a flashback to a time where Buggy and Shanks were still on the Pirate King's ship. Buggy is begging Roger to give in to Shiki, the golden lion, as he fears for his life. Shiki says that Roger knows the location of the weapon that can destroy the world and asks him to form an alliance to rule over the planet. Roger declines as he has no desire to rule and the fight begins. In my opinion, the weapon that Shiki mentions is Uranus, and I also think that the big egg on the Oro Jackson is exactly that. It is mentioned that Roger's crew mysteriously disappeared, and as far as we know, the ship and the egg disappeared as well. Before we go on, I want to stay with chapter 0 for a bit longer. A bit further into the chapter, we can see the narrator talking about Roger's execution and the beginning of the Great Pirate Age, and underneath this panel, 8 people of whom 2 are mothers. I think all the people we see here will play a major role in the final hours of the One Piece saga, except Portgas de Rouge of course. And amongst these 7 characters, which turned out to be big players later on, we have Buggy. Well, as we know now, Buggy is a big player himself today, but that took him very long compared to the other people seen here. But why Buggy? Why this pipsqueak showboy that deemed rather insignificant to the story until Impel Down? Why did Oda go out of his way to show him here together with all the other big names? I say it's because Buggy will be the one to control the ancient weapon Uranus. We see in chapter 821, Momonosuke is suffering pain when being exposed to the voice of all things, and so is Luffy. Zunisha is calling out for Momo to give the order to attack. Momo is even able to see through Zunisha's eyes, and as he discovers Jack, he finally gives our big Dumbo the order to strike. After this, Momo falls into a deep sleep. If we take all this into account, then we can say that being exposed to the voice of all things wears you out when you are still a child. Now, considering that, as we know, Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon. We don't know if she ever was exposed to the voice of all things as a child, since she was locked up almost her entire life. But remember back to chapter 647. The Sea Kings tell Shirahoshi that she called them because she was led by the Straw Hat Boy's powerful desire. They go on. Just as he tried to save the island, you wish to be a source of strength to him. This clearly shows that she's controlling them. And as she is grown up already, she's not suffering any kind of headache. She is communicating with them without problem. Alright, back to the Oro Jackson. As mentioned, the ship and its crew, a few members aside, disappeared into thin air and have never been heard of again. In chapter 976, the thing that made me suspicious happened. Right before the final island, which Roger named Lovetail, Buggy caught a sudden fever. A very mysterious circumstance considering that the fever was so bad that he could not attend the journey to Lovetail. Why could he not simply stay in the ship cabin and get back to health there? Also, Shanks stayed with him to take care for him. But why? Why could they not stay on the ship? How bad was that fever that a treatment on ship was impossible? Or was something else responsible? I think that the being inside the big egg on the Oro Jackson started getting more active the closer the crew got to the final island. And as it got more active, it started communicating with the voice of all things. Not clearly, but in an incomprehensible way, like babies do. And there were only two people on the ship who were able to feel that: Roger and Buggy. As the thing inside the egg was not communicating clearly, the waves it emitted must have been very confusing, and Buggy started to feel sick as he was around the egg the whole time. It must have taken a big toll on himself if you consider that Momo was in pain after hearing Zunisha only for a little while. It was the same when Luffy called out for Momo to tell him that he is alright. After he was artificially aged by Shinobu, he had no more problems with the voice of all things. If we take this in consideration, if the egg truly housed the ancient weapon Uranus and started communicating, Buggy must have entered a stage of immense constant pain which led to a fever. Soon after he left the ship, he got better. When they came back, they picked up Shanks and Buggy and left the vicinities. Either this or something that happened on Lovetail stopped the being in the egg from communicating, and so Buggy was not influenced by it anymore. Then Roger dispensed the Roger Pirates, and right after that scene we see two Sea Kings talking to each other. The birthing is at hand, our sovereign will soon be born, and another in a distant sea. The whales are delighted in anticipation of the day the two sovereigns shall meet again. It's almost here, and surely all will go well this time. And as they say this, they look up to the Oro Jackson. It is almost here. They are talking about the egg. I think this part, it's almost here, must be separated from the sentence before where they were talking about the two sovereigns. It's almost here, just 10 until the birth and another 15 to grow. I am certain they are talking about the egg, because it is the shell that houses the ancient weapon Uranus. Surely all will go well this time. The scene with Charlie after the one with the Sea Kings is misleading on purpose. Roger is asking when the Mermaid Princess is born, and she says 10. This is written so that we think this scene is tied to the one before with the two Sea Kings, but Charlie is talking about the Mermaid Princess. I say the two Sea Kings are talking about Shirahoshi and someone else when they mention the two sovereigns. And then after this, when they say it's almost here, they are talking about the ancient weapon Uranus. By the way, I don't think that the other sovereign is Luffy, and that is simply because they do not recognize him as such when they live in Noah. And I also do not think that Momo is the conduit for Pluton, because in the moment the Sea Kings were talking about another sovereign being born in a distant sea, Momo was already born. So, if my theory is right, then this leaves us with Shirahoshi, Buggy, and a mysterious person we either don't know or we do know, but have not discovered their bond to Pluton yet. Imagine the moment in the manga when we find out that Buggy holds the reins to Uranus. This will be the moment when we discover the truth about a lot more things in the great story of One Piece. I am certain that Buggy will be the Mr. Satan of One Piece. In the end, Luffy will achieve something big and Buggy will earn all the glory. Mark my words. By the way, Shanks and Buggy are designed after a magnet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want to watch more, then I got some videos for you right here.